So if you would humor me, let's take a few moments. And I loved our Al-Anon speaker. I don't know where she went, but, oh, yeah, hi. Talked about Lois said in the moment of silence she invited God to the meeting. I've been doing that for a long time. So let's take a moment each in our own way and invite God to the meeting. And then we will slowly, I say again slowly in case there are any Yankees in the room. I can't pray as fast as the Yankees do. I love them, but I can't pray that fast. So we're going to slowly whisper the Serenity Prayer. Let's have a few moments and invite God to the meeting. Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity. We'll work on the slowly at the end here because you missed it flat, okay? As a matter of fact, I think we're going to do a do-over on that, okay? All right? Slowly, and whisper, okay? Let's slowly whisper the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. For me, that changes it from a ritual back into a prayer. And we're going to do what we call, at home, a friend of mine came up with this idea. We call it a page 112 meeting. Anybody know what the first three words in page 112 are? Read this book. And I do a number of men's retreats. We always open with this. For the men, we give them a 3-minute time limit. You got to give us a page number first, read a paragraph or less, and tell us why you read it 3 minutes. Here, we're going to take 15 minutes apiece and read from anywhere and tell us why you read it. Jennifer, if you'll please start for us.
Hi, all. My name is Jennifer, and I'm an alcoholic. Hi, Jennifer. I've been kept sober since December 5th of 92, and that's my miracle. And I'm going to read from page 19, the italicized part. But the ex-problem drinker who has found this solution, who is properly armed with facts about himself, can generally win the entire confidence of another alcoholic in a few hours. Until such an understanding is reached, little or nothing can be accomplished. That the man who is making the approach has had the same difficulty, that he obviously knows what he is talking about, that his whole deportment shouts at the new prospect, that he is a man with a real answer, that he has no attitude than holier than thou, nothing whatever except the sincere desire to be helpful, that there are no fees to pay, no axes to grind, no people to please, no lectures to be endured. These are the conditions we have found most effective. After such an approach, many take up their beds and walk again. So the reason that I chose this one was I didn't come to AA from treatment. I came to AA from jail, as you heard, in my mama's house. And I didn't choose my group because it was highly recommended. I chose it because I knew that they were going to take my driver's license, and it was the closest group to my parents' house. It was a group that I could walk to. And so I'm going to this group, and as I told you last night, I didn't know most of what they were talking about. I didn't understand what people were saying. I didn't know what a lot of the AA lingo meant. And I certainly had no idea what a sponsor was. And we couple that with the fact that I don't want you to know I don't know. It is something I still suffer from. I know I don't know, and I'm pretty okay with I don't know, but I don't want you to know I don't know. And so they're pecking me half to death about getting a sponsor, and I don't know what a sponsor is, what you do with a sponsor, how you find a sponsor, which, And so I'm just having to glean information off of what I hear in the meeting. I do not recommend that because the first meeting that I was ever at, the gal chairing the meeting said that the first time she met her sponsor, the first time she saw her sponsor, she knew. So I go out to stalk a sponsor. And at the time I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I was confused in every way a human being can be confused, including my sexuality. So my whole presentation was a little ambiguous. And I thought I was a lesbian that didn't like women. Let's just be real clear. That's what my sponsor said when I told her. She said, "Have you ever taken action on that?" I said, "I don't really know how." And so I'm presenting not super femme, I'll tell you that. I pretty much have a gone fishing sign around my neck. Ain't nobody hitting on this. And so I'm sitting in the meeting staring at the women, trying to know, and it gets awkward. I mean, there are people getting real uncomfortable with Twitchy the Clown just staring them down in the meeting, waiting to hear the ding to know that that's my sponsor. And so after a couple of very uncomfortable women's meetings, because they were very clear with me that I needed a woman sponsor. And they didn't really tell me why, but I would have been safe with either one, if I'm really honest. But I needed a woman sponsor because a man can't teach me how to be a strong woman in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's just my experience. So but I didn't like y'all, and I didn't trust y'all because I thought you were all like me. And so I'm stalking a sponsor, and in desperation, I go to the Denny's recovery unit. I mean, the meetings where you get the meeting, but then you get your real information and your gossip at Denny's. And so I go to the Denny's recovery unit and I say, when I see her, I will know plan is not working. And these people are getting more aggressive about get a sponsor. So I'm going to need some more information. And they told me what they probably told you. Find someone who you can relate to, and then ask her to teach you to do what she did. Again, I don't think this is great information. I am new. I am detoxing. I am certifiable. I've been going to a lot of meetings, but all the voices in my head are still talking loud, and I am looking for somebody I can relate to. So I'm sitting there twitching, and these women have got their hygiene down, like they got car insurance. I mean, they're living at a whole nother level that I'm living at, and I'm not even exaggerating. And it took me 2 years to get a driver's license and a car and insurance all at the same time. That's like the trifecta for alcoholics. And so finally, I'm at that stupid women's meeting they pecked me half to death to make me go to, and I hear her, and as soon as I hear her, it's the mothership. Like, I know this is the one, and I cannot get to her fast enough. We have not completed the Lord's Prayer before I'm leaping over the coffee table to run to her because I have found someone I can relate to. And I asked this woman to be my sponsor, Jeanette. And she said, "Sure, I'll be your sponsor." And I said, "How long have you been sober?" And she said, 4 days. I've been sober almost a month, so we decided I should probably be her sponsor. And it's funny now, but let me tell you, nothing's wasted in God's economy because Jeanette had been in and out of AA for over 10 years, and she did not have enough time to sponsor somebody. And that day, that became objectionable to her. And she stayed sober ever since, until she died. And so but she was not my sponsor. And I finally got a sponsor based on, who has what, so find a sponsor who has what you want. And again, I don't know that that's the best information, because the most I could dream of in Alcoholics Anonymous is that I might be turned into a nice lady. Because I wasn't a lady when I got to you, and I certainly wasn't nice. And that was my big dream. And some days I have even accomplished it, and some days I have not. So I just ran around AA looking for a nice lady. I also wanted a sponsor that did not want to go camping. Because I heard somebody in a meeting, there was a whole line of sponsorship on the men's side of my home group, and they all did their fifth steps on a camping trip, and I was not in any shape for camping. And so the sponsor that I chose was a woman approximately this size. I was not this size back then, but she was this size, and she was pretty, and she always had her makeup on, and she always had her hair done. And she laughed really loud, like you could hear her from the parking lot. You could hear her laugh. And she laughed a lot. And but the main thing was that she called me precious. And I hadn't been precious for a real long time. And now I wasn't picking up on the nuances of Alcoholics Anonymous, because sometimes precious did not mean precious. It means stop it. It meant bless her heart is what it meant. But I didn't know that yet. I just thought, she thinks I'm precious, and she became my sponsor. And what I didn't know was that she had multiple years of sobriety. She had not worked all 12 steps out of the book. And she was worked at a bank and just happened to be stealing money from the bank. I literally chose a sober bank robber to be my sponsor. So, whoops. Now, I did what she told me to do, and I will tell you what. I did what she told me to do, and I stayed sober. Because she got me involved in Alcoholics Anonymous. She taught me AA etiquette. She taught me how to sit still through the whole freaking meeting, even when the weirdos are sharing. Who knew? She took me through the steps that she knew how to take. And she answered my phone calls and was as honest as she knew how to be. And I will tell you that when we got to the steps that she had not taken, she told the truth. And she told me when it was time to find a new sponsor, and so I did. By then I had more than a year of sobriety, and I was going to this detox center for women, and I was carrying my message. It was not the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, but I didn't know that. I was listening to a lot of AA tapes, and I was regurgitating stuff I thought sounded really cool. And but I didn't. It was like I knew the words, but I couldn't hear the music. And this woman, I called her the bulldog secretly. I mean, not to her face, because she was freaking scary. But this woman was on to me. And she would try to look into my eyeballs. And I did not like that. And I would share in the meeting, because I love sharing in a meeting. And she would not even wait for somebody dumber than me to share. She would immediately whip out this tiny big book and flip to a page and dispute my theories about Alcoholics Anonymous, which I found offensive. There were women in there 10 days sober, and I got a year, and she waits for me to share and then goes, nope, and then reads something. The women the little pocket-sized big books had just come out, and it felt like she had hers in a holster. I don't even know what I would do with one of those, because I couldn't see it, but that's what she would do. And it's too long a story, but I wound up alone in a room with her, and I need to get her out of my face. At one point, she asked me what step I'm on, and I told her I was on 8.5, which apparently is a tell, because there are no half steps, there are only half measures. And I wind up alone in a room with her, and I say, how do you find a sponsor? And she whips out the book, and I was mad because I'd been reading that book every night since the day I got sober. And I knew it wasn't in there. And she read that the man who was making, except she said the woman who is making the approach has had the same difficulty, that she obviously knows what she is talking about, that her whole deportment shouts that she is a woman with a real answer. And there she was. She's there. Her whole deportment said, I have found me in this book. And if you will come with me and read it with me, and if you will take a step, when we come to a step with me, your whole deportment will shout too. And I pray that it does. I'm glad to be here, and it's a good day to be sober.
Wow. Thank you.
Hello, folks. My name is Tommy T, and I'm an alcoholic. It's just too easy. It's too easy. I think my page numbers might be a little bit off from those with regular big books, because it's a fancy Yankee book. And but I picked something in Bill's story. And it says, my friend promised when these things were done, I would enter upon a new relationship with my Creator, that I would have the elements of a new way of living which answered all my problems. Belief in the power of God, plus enough willingness, honesty, and humility to establish and maintain the new order of things were the essential requirements. That's a big paragraph. And when you're as shaky as I was and as down as I was when I got shown this book, I didn't really understand it. And I don't know if I'm kind of doing some heresy here in a page 112 meeting, but they go on later on page 87 in my book to say, they explain it a little bit for a dumb Yankee like me, because I didn't understand what that meant. But I like that term, it solved all my problems, because I thought I had so many more problems than alcoholism. I didn't know they all wrapped neatly into alcoholism at that point. But, money problems, women problems, everything was a problem. And I just felt so lost, and I just couldn't get my head around that this God that I didn't even believe in yet was going to solve all these things. But as we go through the directions and we get to steps 10 and 11, it tells us, as we go through our day, we pause when agitated or doubtful. We ask for the right thought or action. I pray. We constantly remind ourselves we're no longer running the show, humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. We are then in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. We become much more efficient. We do not tire so easily, for we are not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. And then it says, it works. It really does. I didn't realize how much energy I expended trying to run the whole world and doing a bad job at it. Every relationship I had, trying to manipulate things everywhere I went, trying to figure, that's the outcome I need to happen for me to be okay. How do I get there? This whole thing of just laying back and trusting God was just so foreign to me. But, I work with a lot of guys, since I went through this book, and I tell them all the time, if you're going to be in a committed relationship, if you're in a steady job, if you have any type of life commitments where you're going to see the same people every day, you better be practicing these principles. Or else you're not only going to ruin your life, you're going to ruin those lives around you, drunk or sober. I can do equally as much damage sober. And I've shown that. I have done that. I'm not proud to say that, but I've done that. I had the bottom fall out on me with about 9 years of sobriety, and I had a second surrender that I would put up against the one that brought me in here, because I didn't have drugs, alcohol, or anything else to blame it on. I was just a fraud in AA, and I was doing wrong things and not telling people about it, and I had built those walls back up, and it was just hard living. But when I started to practice that 10th and 11th step, and I love, there's an old story that somebody asked Chuck Chamberlain, one of our earlier guys, hey, Chuck, how do you pray? And he just said, constantly. And now, before I started to believe in a God, before my prayers connected to anything, I felt like I was a fraud. Like I was faking it until you make it kind of thing, they say. But I kept saying it. And things started to change. And I started to notice it. I'm with the same woman for 17 years now, and I didn't talk much about my wife this morning or my family, my blended family. I have my son, the one that I ran out on, is 9 years sober with us. He lived with us for a big period of time. Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. Cheryl's 3 children she brought to the marriage, they're brothers and sisters. You cannot separate them, man. They do all things together. It's the coolest thing. When COVID hit, they were coming to our house on Saturdays. We watched 23 Marvel movies in a row, in sequence. And one got to pick the dinner, one brought the dessert. They want to hang out with us. Who wanted to hang out with their parents when they were in their 20s, right? I know not me. I was ripping and roaring and running all over. And me and my wife just get to look at this and say, well, how did this happen? It happened because we're a house of God. We're a house of love. And it's just an amazing, amazing thing. But I have to practice these things because my ego and my fear will get in the way of everything. And I'll give you 2 examples. When I was first married with Cheryl came from an abusive marriage where the husband used money and loud and smacking and yelling and all that stuff. And he really, kind of manipulated her that way. So I was kind of hypersensitive to that kind of stuff. So I never wanted to raise my voice in the house. And my wife called me from work one day and said, we have a little problem. And I said, what? And we were struggling financially in the beginning. She wasn't working, and I was doing my best to pay all the bills. And she said, well, the engine in the car seized. And I said, babe, that's a brand new car. She said, well, it had no oil in it. Lack of oil, that was her dilemma. And I said, okay, I'll talk when we get home. And I drove home, and I was praying, and I was praying, and I was praying, and it didn't sound like it was connected to anybody, but I walked in that house, and my wife was terrified. She didn't know what I was going to do. And she said, can we talk about the car? I said, yeah, in a minute. I just got to go up. I want to get out of my suit. And I go upstairs, and I start praying, and I start praying. And I never write 10 steps. I very rarely have the opportunity to do that. But I said a prayer, and like a lightning bolt, it came to me. Putting oil in the car is on your list. That's one of the man's duties. We have those man and woman roles, whether they're sexist or not. I don't want to offend anybody, but in my home was still a little old school. Taking out the garbage, that's me. Fixing stuff, that's me. Everything else, that's her. And I realized that's on me. And I walked downstairs, and my wife said, can we talk? I said, yeah. And I held her hands, and I said, honey, don't worry about the car. We'll get the car fixed. And I said, I should have done that. It's not your problem. She just started crying. Now imagine if I reacted the other way, that early in our relationship. The whole relationship could have went a different way. And I would have had to do 3/4 steps, 4 different sponsors to find out that it was my fault in the beginning. But God showed me the grace not to do that. Not too long after that, our middle boy, Rob, that's living with us now with his children, her son, was late to work, and he took my Lincoln Continental to work. Nobody drives Tom's Lincoln Continental. Nobody. And I got home from work early in the city car and saw my car was missing. So he was about 19. I sat there stewing. I'm going to kill this kid. Who does he think he is? But I made a phone call. I turned to God. God wasn't taking it. So I called a friend of mine, Peter, down in Florida. And I said, Peter, this is going on. He says, okay. All right, well, does he know that he's not supposed to? I said, yeah, he knows. Everybody knows. He says, no, have you specifically told him? No. Well, maybe you need to have that conversation in a nice tone of voice. So going to, I'm going to punch this kid in the face because he's a big kid. I was going to have to jap him. I couldn't fight him straight up. I'm an old man at this point, And he walked in, and I sat him down, and we had a stern conversation, but I did not raise my voice and did not anything. And he pointed to this maybe 2 years ago. He said, you remember when I took your car? And I said, yeah. He said, I couldn't imagine how you reacted. That you just talked to me like a dad. That's when I knew you were my dad. And that's what I get from this. I'm not that guy. I'm the guy that's going to bring havoc into every relationship I go into. And then I still got some time, so I'm really breaking rules here. But there is a line back in the family afterwards that says,
What page?
It's 128 in my book, but I think it's going to be 1 or 2 pages either way for you guys. It says, like a gaunt prospector, belt drawn over the last ounce of food, our pick has struck gold. Joy at our release from a lifetime of frustration knew no bounds. Father feels he has struck something better than gold. For a time he may try to hold the new treasure to himself. He may not see that at once he has barely scratched a limitless load that will pay dividends only if he mines it for the rest of his life and insists on giving away the entire product. My family is so firmly behind us here in AA and the work that I do with other guys that they never are disappointed if I have to leave somewhere for a 12-step call or something. They understand. But I am also very, very mindful that I'm a family man only because of you folks, and I try to balance that as best I can. And I don't always, sometimes it's lopsided. Sometimes I say yes to go in some places, and I find myself out 3 times in a month, and that's not right. That's not me. I'm a once-a-month guy. I used to wear a badge. Lee can tell you, fill-in. I was the fill-in guy. You could call me on Wednesday. I'd run anywhere to talk, you know. But my life is God. It's my family. It's AA. It's God, AA, and my family in that order, because I understand that without God and AA, I don't have my family. And what's our role here? No matter how busy and how full our lives get, we have to pass this stuff on. It is the most important thing. See, I think I'm a pretty good father now. I think I'm a pretty good husband now. But I'm a real good AA member. I know that's what God has me here for. I'm useful here. I can win the faith of a newcomer in less than a half hour. If it's not happening in a half hour, something's wrong. I got to go get sent in. What am I not doing here? This kid's not telling me his whole life story yet, you know. And just to make that person feel a little bit better when we come in here, because we come in so broken and so banged up. And it is my greatest joy when I go down to Tennessee and I meet with these guys, and we're going to do a men's retreat. We're going to be selfish. We're going to talk about ourselves all weekend long. But we go in on a Wednesday because we go to the prisons. And then on Friday we go to the rehab and we spend all day there. And by the time you get to this rehab, you are so chilled, you're not talking about yourself anymore. You're asking all your friends, how you been? How'd the last year go? Was everything good? How's the wife and kids? You remember people's names. That's not the guy I am. So I have seen this profound transformation happen here. And it's only because I believe every single word in this book. I have not seen a lie in this book in 29 years that I've been reading it. And that the fact that God has opened up my circle of friends to go around the country and even in other countries. It's just an amazing, amazing thing, and I would not miss it for the world. So thanks. Thanks.
I'm looking at a picture of my dog, gives me inspiration. My name's Danny. I'm alcoholic. I've had gift sobriety since February the 18th of 81. Yeah, that's a long time, isn't it? So, he said, your favorite page or quote. I don't have a favorite one. I really don't. I don't have an underlined big book. And I don't knock you if you do. It's just that when I underlined my big book, I was with my sponsor, and he said, "So what is missing with these other things?" I said, "Well, this is what interests me." He said, "Well, maybe you want to look at it differently and read the whole book." So I've just adopted that way. But there is something that comes to my mind lately. It's on page 40, I think it's 45, yes, 45. It says, our human resources, as marshaled by the will, were not sufficient. They failed utterly. Lack of power, that was our dilemma. We had to find a power by which we could live, and it had to be a power greater than ourselves, obviously. That's one of my favorite books, lines in the big book, obviously. Where and how were we to find this power? And if you go to page 49, it has something that I've read for a long time, and now I kind of see it. Maybe I just see it. I read it for a long time. And it says, however, when the perfectly logical assumption is suggested that underneath the material world and life as we see it, there is an all-powerful, guiding, creative intelligence. Right there, our perverse streak comes to the surface, and we laboriously set out to convince ourselves it isn't so. Now, I can really relate to that, and I've read that many times and quoted it often. But I was thinking recently, and I'm only 43 years sober, so you can appreciate it. I just now kind of stumbled onto this. I think the big book is like, it's shallow enough for a baby to bathe in, or it's deep enough to bathe an elephant in. It just meets you where you happen to be. But I was thinking about, what have I always really, really wanted? I've always wanted power to live my life. And like all of you, I've been, I've had these times when it's just like, I just can't work it out. And I've always wanted guidance. I always wanted to believe I had a little power to do it. I had some guidance that I could really that I could really rely on. And I would love to have a relationship with God, that He was the creative intelligence. So not only have I got power and I'm guided, but I'm guided to situations that I don't really understand. But this is promising me that I will also be able to get intuitive thoughts and decisions, that I'll be able to live life guided by the Spirit of the universe. That's what I wanted all along. And I thought I didn't know really how to get it. I think that's one of the things that tripped me up for a long time in really surrendering the two things that most of us don't surrender, and that's our finance and our romance. You give God everything but that. I mean, those are a couple of things He doesn't really have any business meddling in, because good Lord, you don't know what in the world He has on His mind. But if you're going to be successful in Alcoholics Anonymous, you're going to be successful in life. If you're going to live a life, you have to live a life surrendered, and you have to surrender to something that you trust and believe in. And that's what I came to. And I think Tommy just said he had a second surrender. I think I'm on my 42nd one. You surrender regularly. That reminds me, you know what the toughest year is? Everybody's always talking about, you know what the toughest year is? It's the one you're in. Straight up, that's it. And it's also the best one. But it is, don't think that you're going to get to this place and it's going to be harder than that place. Wherever you are, that's where you are. Tommy wanted me to tell this story, and I cannot figure out how to put it in, so I'm just going to tell it, and it hasn't got anything to do with what we're talking about. But I'm hard to get away from the microphone. You especially need to listen to this one. So I belonged to the anonymous group, and my sponsor's name was Harold Wilson, and he was like a big book thumping fool. And we had been watching, one of our young ladies had fallen in love with a deputy sheriff that had just gotten sober, and they were in love, and he went off to some conference or something and came back, and she had met somebody else, and she was now in love with that person. And so Lee come in, and he sees that he's not very happy, and he goes off and broods about it. And we're coming out of a meeting one day, and she comes running back in. It's about 20 people in this little house. And she comes running back in and said, "Oh, my God, Lee's out there. He's drunk. He has a gun. He said he's going to kill me." And, of course, we all just headed for the bathroom like a covey of quail, And Harold stopped about 3 steps in, and he said, "Oh, hell, ain't no drunk going to run me around my own club." And he turned around and walked back in there to the kitchen where he was coming in. And here he came in. And Harold saw him, and he said, "Now, son, you don't want to hurt us. We're the only friends you have." And he just broke down crying and laid that gun down. I picked it up, took the bullets out, and he got sober. And every year for the next 5 years, when it came to his birthday, he didn't get a chip, he got a bullet. You stay sober, you get your bullets back, yeah. I know that I'll tell you this about, and just speaking in general terms about the big. I want to tell you this, that the speakers have been amazing, and which you should be grateful for, because then there's me, and but I will tell you that when I have trouble, when I have distress, when I have need of inspiration, when I'm talking to you. When somebody's new here, and I think about them, and I wonder, how in the world are you going to hear what's here? I feel a responsibility to be transparent, not to know everything. I don't know everything. It's all written down in the book. I find my inspiration and my direction. I read that book, and that book always leads me to look to that guiding, all-powerful, creative intelligence to sit quietly. And I'm told that if I'll do that, what I'll get is an inspiration. I'll know the right thing, and I just have to trust that comes out. How do you get led? You pray, and then you act as if you get the inspiration. Sometimes you know it, and other times it just comes out. And I have lived that way most of my AA life. Of course, everybody takes detours. Well, I say everybody, at least Tommy did. And I do. I am not the poster boy for Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm one of the most fortunate of all people in AA. How I got here, you'll hear a little bit about that later when I get my 2-hour speech in. I've told somebody earlier this. I've learned this, that in AA, you never have to be alone again. If you're new here, you understand that you don't have to be alone again, unless you talk longer than an hour. Yeah, I've enjoyed this meeting, and I enjoy listening, particularly to Scott. Scott has always had a good way with talking about the books. I'm a guy. My sponsor, I told him, "Don't you have me doing workshops? I do not do workshops." So he had me doing a workshop. And he called me up. He said, "Are you ready?" I said, "No, I'm not." He said, "Have you prepared?" I said, "Steve, I lived my life in AA extemporaneously." He said, "Danny, that's just a big word for unprepared." But it's very much true. I'm a little bit ADD. I'll carry the trash out and be mowing the grass, and. But I have found that if I read this book enough, when I sit down and start to talk to you, when I get past all the things that I'm worried about, whether I'm communicating with you, or whether you understand, or whether I measure up, or is this a contest, I let all that go, because I just know that in this book, it just comes to me. It speaks to my heart. And I've came to Alcoholics Anonymous using my heart as a place to store things that I was afraid of. It was a place where I kept all the things that went bump in the dark, and nobody's looking in there, including me. But what I got out of this by following these directions in here was a little house cleaning that allowed me a place because it's a place for communication to and with the kids of God. And that is one of the greatest blessings I've gotten out of following the instructions in this book, is the house cleaning that allows me to be able to relate with you. And other than in the foolish ways that we like to play and make fun with each other, I get that. I do that a lot. But when it gets right down to it, we're deadly serious. When we get out and we get kneecap to kneecap, and your life is on the line, and I know it, and you don't. That's important to me. It's important to remember that when I was sitting there, and John Henry was on the other side, and he said to me, "This is what we will do, and we're going to read this book and take these actions, and if there's a prayer, we pray it, and if there's an action, we take it. And I will promise you this, you do this, and it will change you." And I'm telling you, that's absolutely the truth. Now, the guy that's really great at this and has been prepared for months is Scott, and so I'm going to shut up.
Not guilty, Your Honor. I'm Scott Lee. I'm alcoholic, and I had forgotten y'all give your sobriety dates here. We don't do that back home. Mine's 6/28 of 1984. I have to stop and think because I got sober on my birthday, so I could have given you my original anyway. Because I'm easily confused. I blew my manners. I want to thank Lee for inviting me and inviting all of us, and I want to thank the other Lee for recording. Without guys like that, I might not be here. I just really appreciate what everyone's done. I'm going to skip around because that's the way I like to do it, and I'm going to start with some of the things that I misunderstood. On page 3, paragraph begins 2/3 way down the page. My drinking assumed more serious proportions, continuing all day and almost every night. The remonstrances of my friends terminated in a. That next word is not row, it's row. Rhymes with cow, and it's a quarrel or an argument. And I didn't know that. I read row for over 30 years, and I've got a friend in Scotland, and I heard him use row, and I understood. So that makes it a lot more sense, at least it does to me now. I had another one on page 66, middle paragraph, if we were to live. So this portion is only for the ones that want to live. Everyone else can take a break. If we were to live, that'd be for anger, the grouch and the brainstorm, but not for us. That brainstorm thing confused me greatly. And I did some digging, and what I found out is in the 1940s, an ad executive, his name was Osborne actually, on Madison Avenue wrote a book about how his team put together an ad campaign. They'd put a product out in the middle of the table and say, okay, let's hear it. And Tommy would say, well, this. And Jennifer would say, well, maybe that. And Danny would say, well, that makes me think of this. And, of course, I would come up with the genius idea that we used. And he named his process brainstorming. Has absolutely nothing to do with the word brainstorm on this page. Nothing. I got a 1930s dictionary. I look up brainstorm. It says transient, violent mental outburst. That's rage. So brainstorm and rage mean the exact same thing, have nothing to do with the creative process. I was badly confused about that. I was told to read the black part, and I was told to read all of the black part. And so that left me confused on page 77, third line. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and people about us. So clearly, it's not my purpose to be of maximum service to God and people about me. I wouldn't know how to do that. But to fit myself, I know how to do that. Daily prayer and meditation, reading spiritual literature, going to meetings, taking meetings into jails and treatment centers, hanging out with people like you, sponsoring me. So I don't have to worry about being a maximum service. It's not my job. I was told a master craftsman reaches for the best tool laying the closest to his hand. My job is to be the best tool I can be and reside as close to his hand as I can. A similar one on page 85 where I was confused. It's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. I guess if it's easy to let up, it must require effort to not let up. We're headed for trouble. We do alcoholism, subtle foe. We're not cured of alcoholism. We really have a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. So my daily reprieve, which I looked up, it's either a delay of punishment or a stay of execution, is clearly not based on my spiritual condition. I have no idea what my spiritual condition is. And I was talking to somebody the other day. I said, I'm not qualified to judge it. It's like spiritual growth. It's not something I do. It's something I receive. And and judging that's way above my pay grade. It occurred to me I don't have a pay grade. God didn't hire me here. I'm a volunteer. And volunteers don't have pay grades. But my daily reprieve is on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. And I'm a very good judge of that. That's what step 11, the evening half of step 11 is about, is for me to check to see what my maintenance of my spiritual condition was today. Did I pray and meditate? Did I let people in traffic? Did I say please and thank you? Did I go to meetings? Did I talk to some of you? Did I try to do these spiritual things? Anyway, that was just some stuff that I was confused about that I thought I'd share with you. And it was interesting that Tommy picked up the same piece that I really wanted to talk about. It was on page 13. For those of you who read the book frequently, you know that they rewrite it all the time. And they added something, about 6 months ago, they added something here on page 13. They come sneaking into your bedroom at night. I don't know how they do that. My friend promised when these things were done, I would enter upon a new relationship with my Creator. New. Interesting. If you'd asked me a year ago when I came to AA if I had a relationship with God, I would have said no, I did not. And I would have been wrong. I did have. It's called 911. Yeah. When my tail feathers are ablaze, right? Yeah. So see if you recognize some of these pre-AA prayers. God, please help me pass this test I didn't study for. Please don't let her be pregnant. Yeah. Please don't let those flashing red and blue lights be for me. Another popular one, but I want to tell a story. I had the privilege for a number of years of flying airplanes for the Air Force. And I was flying a four-engine jet. And we came out of Christchurch, New Zealand. They've got a beer down there they call Leopard Strong. I don't know about the Leopard. And I had a little touch of the hangover. And we flew 8 hours from Christchurch, New Zealand to American Samoa and took on fuel. And the fuel we took on in Samoa was contaminated. We didn't know that. And someone was supposed to check and they didn't. And we got an 8-hour flight plan from Samoa to Honolulu. And halfway across, we get into the new fuel, and the contamination is water. Water is not a major problem for a jet engine. Actually, there's some jet engines that they inject water on takeoff roll for additional thrust. The problem is, at our altitude, the temperature is minus 50, and they don't call it water at minus 50. They call it ice, and it clogs the fuel lines. The jet engines about so big around do not respond very well to fuel starvation. So we come down into warmer air, and we can run the engines down here, but we can't make Honolulu at this altitude. And it's already closer to go on than it is to go back. A jet engine is more efficient at higher altitude. A pilot gets in trouble on fuel in a jet, he adds power and climbs. You'll get that climb fuel back. So we climb back up, we can't stay. And the worst thing you can do for gas miles on an airplane is this, and that's what we're doing. Because the numbers say we're going to put a 300,000-pound jet airplane into the Pacific Ocean at about 150 miles an hour today, and we're all going to die. My guess would be well over half the people I'm looking at have had the experience of thinking they're going to die in the next moment or two. We have faced jealous spouses. We have looked down gun barrels and drug deals gone bad. We've laid down bikes and wrecked cars. A lot of us had thinking we're going to die in the next moment or two. Let me tell you something. 4 hours is a long time to think you're going to die today. It's a long time. And I promised to God I don't think I believed in. If he would get me out of this one, I would quit smoking. That was first. Quit drinking. Quit visiting ladies I'm not married to. Go back to church. The early service. I might even build some churches. Listen, you don't leave anything in the bag. This is the big one. And 10 fuel tanks all said 0, and the engines are still turning. And we're close. And what I decided to do was to shoot a forced landing at Hickam. If I could make high station for a forced landing, I could at least crash on dry land so that our bodies could be sent home for burial. That's the conversation we had in that cockpit. Turned final at Honolulu at 9,000 feet. And if they'd all quit, then we'd have made dry land. It wouldn't have been pretty, but we'd have made it. Land on the end of the runway and taxied in and shut them down. And checked our fuel. They dipped our fuel tanks like you dip your crankcase. See how much oil you got? We did not have enough fuel left on that airplane to start 4 engines and taxi from here to the street. We did not have that much left. And I didn't even go to the hotel. I went straight to the bar, put my bags down on either side of the bar stool. It said Mai Tai, the tall one, pack of Marlboros. Right. Tell me you get that. Right? Yeah. Okay. And this is what I see. In those days when I prayed, I was trying to make him my God. What I've been taught here is how to make me his man. You see, I had it backwards. I had so many things backwards when I got here. We have some time left, and I'm not about to throw it back. Let's take about 3 minutes apiece and just pick another nugget out and go for them, Jennifer. Get them. Atta girl.
I had 2 picked, so I'm really excited. Actually, we were fooling ourselves, because this really is my favorite. Deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. It may be obscured by calamity, by pomp, by worship of other things, but in some form or another it is there, for faith in a power greater than ourselves, and miraculous demonstrations of that power in human lives are facts as old as man himself. We finally saw that faith in some kind of God was a part of our makeup, just as much as the feeling we have for a friend. Sometimes we had to search fearlessly, but he was there. He was as much a fact as we were. We found the great reality deep down within us. In the last analysis, it is only there that he may be found. It was so with us. The great reality deep down within. You know, so many of us think we have trouble with the God thing. It's installed in the software. It's here. The problem is that we don't have access. Well, we've clogged up the pipes. We've just clogged up the pipe with ourselves, with this worship of all the things that we think will make us happy, or all the things that we obsessively think about. And I feel like in AA, so much of what we inventory are just our obsessions. It's just a catalog of obsessions, because obsession is kind of my thing, and it has been since I was a little girl. And it still is. If you follow me on Facebook, there's the obsession of the month. This month it's baking bread. I'm breaking bread. And I take glamour shots of this bread. And I've gone through the ukulele obsession and the crochet obsession and the pressure cooker obsession. And there are so many hymns. I mean, they're so glad that I've moved on to kitchen appliances and crafts now. But those obsessions get in the way. Those worships get in the way of my relationship with God. And what you gave me was a way to get all that stuff out of the way so that I could access what has always been here. What has always been here. I used to have a friend who talked about this little piece of blue velvet inside that could never be marred, no matter what. This beautiful, clean, and pure thing. And what I really love is the idea that God is a fact. God is a fact. I want God to be a feeling. And the problem with the feelings are they come and they go. And I don't know if any of y'all are married, but I have some feelings for this man that I'm married to. And some mornings I look over at that sweet angel baby going, and I go, why me? What did I ever do to deserve that precious, precious man? And there are some mornings when he says, you know how you slept last night? You went, which we are not allowed to call snoring. We call it enthusiastic sleeping. And I think, why me? What did I ever do to deserve this? Feelings come and feelings go. God is a fact. God is a fact, not a feeling. And I love that, because if I keep doing what we're doing, I get those promises. It's a fact. It is guaranteed. And I don't have to feel like I'm doing it right. I don't have to evaluate it at all. It's just, are you doing it? Or are you not doing it? And that's one of my favorite things, because I have let feelings run me around the block so much of my life. I wake up to see what kind of day we're going to have. Are we having a big feeling day or a small feeling day? Are we totally functional or only semi-functional? Can I face the grocery store or not? You know, I mean, this is sober, y'all. I mean, she's got a busy head up here. But the great fact is, I've got all the power I'm ever going to need. I've got all the power. And it's not that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I cannot tell you how many times I've been on my knees thinking, God, I can't be any stronger. And God has never asked me to be any stronger. God has asked me to lean into God's power. The fact. So that's the part I wanted to share. I'm glad to be here. It's a good day to be here. I'm
Tommy T, and I'm an alcoholic. What a great place to be, where I totally identify with a lady like you from Texas. That's just all, yeah, that's a hoot. I did good, right? Couple days with you folks, I could be a convert here. So mine's on page 152 in my book, and it says, yes, there is a substitute, and it's vastly more than that. It's the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. There you will find release from care, boredom, and worry. Your imagination will be fired. Life will mean something to you at last. The most satisfactory years of your existence lie ahead. Thus we find the fellowship, and so will you. I want to pick that line, the most satisfactory times in your life lie ahead. And I don't care if you have 9 days here or, like Danny, 90 years. It doesn't matter. Because what I've experienced here is it's directly proportionate to what I do here. As long as I keep God and AA first, my life is wonderful. I was laughing when you were talking about your husband and you sleeping, because there are days where I am so blessed my grandkids are living with us. It's just like, come here, kids. Come to Pop. And they're jumping all over me. And then there's days that I got, beat up at work, and I come walking in the house, and I forgot to pray in the car before I left and got into the house. And I'm like, when are these kids going to move out? And that can be Monday and Tuesday. And that's just the way it is. And I don't know if it's because I'm 64 years old now, or a little further down the road in sobriety than I've been. But I am so grateful for every day sober, no matter what life throws at me. And I can really look at the end of the day and evaluate that. How did I show up? Not how did life show up? How did the kids show up? They're doing the best they can at 2, 4, and 6. What expectations can I have of these kids, Well, in my sick mind, quite a few, I expect them to be college-bound already and on their own. But I know that I have a role there. And my role is to wake up and hit my knees. And it's to pray to God and thank Him for the life I have exactly how it is. No changes. Thank you for my health, exactly how it is, even though there's stuff going on. I should be dead, and I understand that. I should not be with the beautiful woman I'm with. I understand that. I didn't deserve that by my behavior, but that's where He's placed me. I have 4 kids that call me dad. With my behavior, you heard my story. That is not where I should be. So how can I not wake up with a gratitude and just so lucky I ran into you folks, and you folks took time out of you. The greatest gift we can give somebody is our time here. And men on Staten Island gave me that time. And I am ever grateful for that. And I know it gets better every year. I liked what you said, Dan. The toughest year is the one you're in. But the best year is tomorrow. It's going to be better tomorrow. If you're going through something today, don't worry about it. God's got you. God's got you. Go help another drunk, and everything is going to be fine. That's been my experience, and I've been through some stuff in sobriety. Things that I never thought I could hold the healthcare proxy for 2 parents. I don't know anything about it. But I sponsor 2 nurses. So I was on hotline with those guys. Feeding to them, but the stomach or in the nose? What do I do? Like every 10 minutes from the hospital. And they guided me through it. Whatever problem life has thrown me, the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous and the folks that I've met here had me meet it. And I'm not alone in this, and I never feel alone in this. But I can make myself alone in this. And that's when I get into danger. When I start to pull away a little bit and think, no, I'm too busy to go to that meeting tonight because I got to take care of this, I'm in trouble. So if we want our lives to get continuously better and have those satisfactory years in front of us, we just have to do the basic stuff that this book tells us to do and show up and suit up and do what we have to do and help another drunk, and life just rolls out in front of us and we can just stand by and enjoy it. And that's what I'm doing now. So thank you.
Well, in keeping with staying off the topic, we had, I'm sure Lee, and I know you do, we had a guy that I grew up with in AA that he was one of my heroes. And his name was, not really, his name was Jimmy Williams. And Jimmy had a little talk that was just amazing. And I knew him well. I sat with him often. And what Jimmy talked to us, and he told us what his sponsor had told him. He said, when the last time he came in and sat down, he said, I want you to sit down because I want to talk to you. I want you to understand something. Your problem is your thinking. And Jimmy said, how much of it? And he said, oh, we always start with all of it. And if there's any good, we'll tell you. He said, your problem is you know. And as long as you know, you'll never know. But when you begin to know that you don't know, you'll have understanding. And he looked at his sponsor and said, hell, you're crazy. And my sponsor said, I know.
Thank you. I tell you, I was so moved. I was originally scheduled to do this workshop by myself. And when Lee told me who was going to be here speaking, I said, no. I want to hear them too. So I appreciate you guys coming. I appreciate it. I'm on page 456. I was in a different gated community. And I'll tell you what, if you're going into those places, you're going into a prison where they've got big books, take this meeting in there and see what you get. They blew me away. Bottom of 456. AA has accomplished so many things in my life today, giving me my sanity and all-around sense of balance. Now, willing to listen and take suggestions, I've found that the process of discovering who I really am begins with knowing who I really don't want to be. That's what this is all about. If you're new, we're not here to change you into anything. You're already everything you ever needed to be. You just didn't know it. God was not having a bad day in the middle of a long losing streak when he created any of us. We're just wrong about that. And I think the first 9 steps are about me finding out who I don't want to be by taking an honest look. As I understand step 4, the forgiveness process, where I forgive the other people, I received the gift of forgiving them. We had a great talk about that. Is it emotionally disconnects me from your mistakes in the past. As I do the amends in step 9, I get emotionally disconnected from my mistakes in the past, and they simply become facts. I also used to live in Georgia. That's a fact. Along with everything everybody did and everything I did, they just become facts, and I'm no longer emotionally connected to them. And that frees me internally to be here, right now, where the magic is. The hardest assignment I've ever been given is one day at a time, is to simply be here. I'll maybe talk about that some tomorrow. But bottom of page 457, I like to close these meetings with this. From experience, I've realized I cannot go back and make a brand new start. Through AA, I can start from now and make a brand new end. Yeah. And I would ask you to remain seated. We invited God, and I think he came. I've so enjoyed you guys. What a wonderful thing it's been for me. And so let's take a moment and thank him, and then we will slowly, I say again, slowly, whisper the Lord's Prayer. I would note that amen is the last word. Let's have a moment of silence after amen and feel the love in this room. Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. God bless us all. Thank you.